Aikwe Neknamalita, and this is my channel, The Midnight Librarian, and today I will be talking about my review of Thinning Blood, a memoir of family, myth, and identity by Leah Myers. Before we get into the review, I just kind of wanted to give a disclaimer that yes, I'm an Indigenous reviewer and Leah Myers is an Indigenous author. Technically, in a way, yes, that's Own Voices review. However, Indigenous people are not monolithic. Leah Myers identifies as Sklallam, which is an Indigenous tribe whose ancestral lands are northern Washington and the Olympic Peninsula, while I am Yurok, whose ancestral territories is Northern California and Southern Washington. We all have our different languages, experiences, stories, lessons, etc., and those sometimes they overlap or can overlap, that we are all ultimately different. So please bear that in mind as we continue forward with the review. I don't typically do I don't think I've done memoir-ish reviews, but this one I feel like was fairly interesting. So this one, published by W.W. Norton and Company, was published in 2023. I don't remember what year or what month. I just remember finding this in a local bookstore and I thought it was an interesting cover and wanted to learn more. So, as I said, Leah Myers is Sklallam, and I apologize if I am pronouncing that wrong. Specifically, a member of Jamestown Sklallam tribe of the Pacific Northwest, and basically this book is going into her perspective of being the last member of the Jamestown Sklallam tribe in her family line due to their tribe's strict blood quantum laws. The book also goes into 4 generations of women within her line to leave a record of her family, beginning with her great-grandmother, the last full-blooded Native member in her lineage, and connecting to each woman to their totem, what Leah Myers believes is their totem. So this book I ended up reading around the same time my mom was listening to it, which I thought was fairly interesting. We did not do this purposefully. My mom was interested in it because it goes over identity, which is something that my mom has always been attracted to, but it's because it's something that she's had to defend all her life. I was particularly interested in it because I was overall curious, if that makes sense. And it's interesting because we both happen to mention this so we are a part of like a book club of sorts on our university campus, where we don't pick books for the club. Really, we just go to talk about our recent reads, which is really nice because I don't do well with deadlines or books that I don't particularly want to read. My mom described it was that she wasn't as interested in this book. It's not exactly what she thought it was, because my mom grew up with a different identity issue than what Leah Myers has. So Leah Myers knew she was Native American, but grew up without her culture. And she describes this throughout each of her family lines, starting with her great-grandmother, and how her great-grandmother essentially raised her kids away from the Native culture because she thought it would give them a better chance. Leah Myers kind of explores that as her line goes on, and how ultimately now she struggles with trying to find her place in the world, and find her place within her Jamestown Sklallam tribe, whether that and kind of facing those insecurities of, I don't know my language, I don't know my culture, I don't know the ceremonies, and the insecurities that come with that. I thought it was fairly interesting in terms of that, because I think even within growing up in the culture, there are insecurities like that of, I don't know my language. I know some words, but that's about it. And I'm always learning the differences because I grew up on the Hoopa reservation, but I'm Yurok. and most of my family is Karuk. So to grow up with these different ceremonies and learning and slowly learning that Hoopa has a different way of looking at ceremonies and different rules, different etiquettes, different ways of doing things than say Yurok does, in terms of their rules and their etiquettes and how their stories that go with certain ceremonies. And though we have similar ceremonies, the reasoning behind them isn't quite the same. So those that I always find interesting, and so I understand some of Leah Myers' insecurities that way, despite growing up within the culture. I connected with Leah Myers in terms of that, as well as having to defend herself when it came to friendships of friends going, "Oh, you're different because you're white." It's like being Native American. You might as well be white because you look white, and that's something that I'm surprised like my mom didn't connect with, because that's constantly something that she has to fight with. Have been told something similar in the past of just like I don't look native enough, in terms of not, but it was always non-native people telling me that, as opposed to my mom who had fellow native people telling her that. That was an interesting aspect of Leah's story that I found. So we don't have totems here. We do have like the largest totem pole in the world, which I think is a hoax. Because I don't know who made it. There's no it's a thing. It's a whole thing. So to hear about these different totems that Leah has assigned her, the women in her lineage, I thought was really interesting, mostly because I love hearing about the different animals and the stories from different tribes of those animals. So we have bear, salmon, hummingbird, and raven. So it was really fun to get that aspect of it in terms of the Jamestown Sklallam perspective of animal stories. I absolutely love it. And the fact that Leah ends up pointedly saying, going, traditionally Raven would have been a man, but in this story she's female and she's a young girl. So that I absolutely loved, because it was only brought to me recently that we can create our own stories. I always thought it was like passed down and we have certain rules with it, but no, like I was encouraged recently by a storyteller going, no, you can create your own stories. So, and he's like, and it's good to have lessons within them. So it was really, I don't know, it was really good. I liked it. So the fact that Leah had these stories and based them off traditional stories and changed them to her own need was really nice, I thought. There was also a moment in here as well where she described the language, despite having a hard time with it and still not quite getting it. She still had like this whole chapter on explaining the language. It threw me right off the bat because there were symbols that I don't recognize, because you have to understand that a lot of Indigenous languages were not written, they were spoken. So when it became necessary to write them down, it was a process, and it's still a process to understand the symbols needed, because it's not as easy as just doing the English letters we're so used to seeing, because there are noises and pronunciations that were needed to figure out. So one that Leah Myers talks about is the glottal stop. And she describes it as, and this was a perfect way of doing it, of the noise you make between oh, so that as well as a couple other ones, and she describes it like that, and I really enjoy her doing that. Of like, there's other ones that she also mentions that as she's like piecing together this language of what in the English language they're closest to. I don't know, it was just really exciting for me as I slowly progressing and learning my own language of the Yurok language, as well as occasionally Hoopa, and like getting bits and pieces of Karuk to understand what Leah was talking about when it came to the Sklallam language. It was like exciting of like, oh, I understand this. Like I understand, and to have Leah explain it in a way that I'm like, I wish our dictionaries had it like this. Like, I'm glad of the Yurok language dictionary that UC Berkeley did, where we have those audio recordings that I have to listen to like 10 times in order to get it, but to have the description of the closest thing in the English language to be able to help understand what I'm supposed to be doing with my tongue, or how I'm supposed to be shaping my mouth. It was really helpful. So I would say that there is content warnings in here for racism, as well as domestic violence, cheating, and then relationships. So definitely look up content warning before going into this. My overall thoughts for this book, though, as there were different gems in here, but it ultimately felt like an introduction. There's things in here that she describes that I think if you did grow up in the culture that you would already know. It's nothing new. So I feel like I would recommend this to folks who aren't as familiar with Native American culture. So take that as you will. I don't rate memoirs because it is someone's life, but I will say that I did enjoy it. I will be keeping this book. And like I said, there are certain folks that I would recommend this to. An interesting read. And a relatively short read. I think I got this done in a couple days. And really, I think it could have been done in one sitting, but that's assuming that I don't have a short attention span, or if I'm fully interested, or I have nothing else going on. So yeah, I thought it was a relatively quick and easy, interesting read. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Thinning Blood, a memoir of family, myth, and identity by Leah Myers. If you have read this book, please let me know what your thoughts were down in the comments down below. So if you made it this far, let's go ahead and put that like heart with the bandage emoji. I think that would be good. I think that's appropriate. Otherwise, I hope that you are in the mental mindset to enjoy your reading, and I will see you in another video, hopefully very soon. Cheers.